Today we're going to be talking about section 3.8, which is on using inverse matrices to solve linear systems. So far we've talked about, this will be our fifth method of solving a system of equations. We did graphing, we've done substitution, elimination, section 3.7 we did Cramer's rule, and now we're going to look at inverse matrices. And so the first thing we're going to look at is how to find the identity matrix. And an identity matrix is an n by n matrix with ones on the main diagonal and zeros elsewhere. So again, n by n means it's a square matrix, so it's a 2 by 2 matrix. Notice we have the main diagonal having ones. And then also in the 3 by 3, the main diagonal having ones, and everything else is a 0 when we look at our identity matrix. So we're going to use that to find the inverse. Two n by n matrices are inverses of each other if the product in both orders, remember a commutative property for multiplication does not hold true for matrices, is the identity matrix, which is an n by n. So here's how we're going to find the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix. We're going to take our original matrix, AB in row 1, CD in column or in row 2, and then to find the inverse we take 1 over the determinant of A, and that's going to be a scalar like a half or a fifth. And then we're going to multiply that by the new matrix that we have. And notice here we're just switching A and D, those two switched places, and the B and C are just switching signs. So we're going to find the determinant and then multiply it by that new matrix. So the best way to do that is look at an example. And so let's look at example 1. So we're going to find the inverse, which is 1 over the determinant. Well, remember, the determinant is, we're going to multiply these. So that's negative 15 minus, and then the other diagonal, that's negative 16. So that's plus 16. And then we're going to multiply it by this new matrix. We're switching the 5 and the negative 3. And then we're switching the signs on the other two. So that's going to be 2 and negative 8. Well, obviously, negative 15 plus 16 is 1. So it's really 1 over 1, which is 1, times this matrix. So in this case, our inverse matrix is simply negative 3 and 2 in row 1 and negative 8, 5 in row 2. So there's how to find the inverse matrix. So what I want you to do is go down to the guided practice questions 1, 2, and 3. You don't have to do them all, but go ahead and try at least 1 or 2 of those and try to find the inverse of that matrix. And then you can hit pause in the video when you are ready to do so, and then hit play when you're ready to resume. And here are the answers to the guided practice questions. So notice that A with that negative 1, that is the inverse. That's how you find, or how you label that. So it's the inverse of each of those 3 matrices are listed below. The next thing we're going to do is now we're going to use the inverse to solve a matrix equation. So we have the equation on the left, which is a 2 by 2 matrix, times x equals another 2 by 2 matrix. So we want to know what is the matrix that we would need to multiply by. So when we talk about solving matrices, we're essentially going to find the inverse of the A matrix. So this matrix is A, and this matrix is B. So we're going to find the inverse of A. That's what we're going to start with. Then we're going to multiply that to the left side of both equations and see how that, or what that does. So like if we had just a regular equation, 3x equals 4, we would solve it by dividing both sides by 3. That's the same thing, essentially, what we're going to do here. We're going to divide by matrix A, which is essentially multiplying by its inverse. So we're going to start by finding the inverse of A. So it's going to be 1 over 15 minus 14. And then that's going to switch those two around, switch the signs. And so the inverse is really going to be this matrix, 5, 2, 7, 3. So that's our inverse. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take that and we're going to multiply it by both sides. So, and it's going to be on the left side, 5, 2, 7, 3. We're going to multiply it by 3, negative 2, negative 7, 5. And then put our x. And then that's going to equal 5, 2, 7, 3. The matrix on the right. So notice here, we're just multiplying the inverse of A to the left side of both of those. Well, when we do this, we're going to see what really happens here. If we multiply, remember, we're going across here and down this side, we're going to get 15 plus negative 14. And that's going to give us 1. And then we're going to get negative 10 plus 10, which is 0. 21 minus 21, which is 0. And negative 14 plus 15. So realistically, this is the identity matrix, 1, 1, 0, 0. So essentially that's multiplying that matrix by 1. So that's like 1x. So we're really solving for x. So when we do this, you don't have to do the left side because if we found the inverse, those are going to cancel out. So really the only part of this problem we need to do is the multiplication on this side to find what x is. And so let's do that. So we're going to get negative 10 plus 6 for row 1, column 1. Row 1, column 2, we're going to get 20 minus 2. Row 2, column 1, we're going to get negative 14 plus 9. And then row 2, column 2 is going to give us 28 minus 3. And so really x is going to equal negative 4, 18, negative 6, negative 5, and 25. So here is what x equals. So what I would like you to do, go ahead and pause the video and do guided practice question number 4. You can hit play when you're ready to move on. So here's the answer to the guided practice question. Notice on the left side here we found the inverse of A, which was negative 1/4, 1/24 in row 1, 0 and 1/6 in row 2. Then we multiplied that to the left side of our B matrix to get what x is. And x is negative 1, negative 2 in row 1 and 4, 1 in row 1 and then 4, 1 in row 2. All right, next we're going to look at the inverse of a 3 by 3 matrix. Now this is very difficult to compute by hand, so we are not going to. A calculator will compute inverses matrices is what we are going to do now. So we're going to look at how to put these into your graphing calculators. So get your graphing calculator out. We're going to enter this 3 by 3 matrix. And then we're going to show you how to do that. So go ahead and get your graphing calculator out now. All right, so we're going to look at how to enter this into your calculator. Well, if you look in the left column, the fourth button down in the blue, it says matrix. So we're going to hit that. So we're going to hit second and then matrix. Now this list is going to come up. Well, obviously, anytime that we put something in, we're going to go over to edit. And I'm going to edit and I'm going to put it in matrix A. and it tells you what kind of matrix we have. So if we're looking at your notes, A is a 3 by 3 matrix. So we want to put that as a 3 by 3 matrix. Hit enter, and there it gives us those. So we're going to go in row 1 at row 1. So it's going to be 1, 0, -2. And then row 2 is 3, 2, 1. And then row 3 is -1, 1, and 4. So now we have this matrix entered. That's all we need to do for there. So let's get out of there. Let's go to second quit. Well, we want to find the inverse. Well, we're going to go back to the matrix button, but now instead, if you can see there in A, it says now that we have a 3 by 3 matrix there. Perfect. But we want to do some math on this thing, and we want to find the inverse. And actually, inverse is not in there. We can do the inverse on our calculator. So let's pull up. We're going to go to a second matrix. We're going to pull up that name, that enter matrix A. So that is the matrix that we put in right there. And now the inverse button you can see is that same button we've been hitting, but it's the -1. So we hit the inverse of that and hit enter, and there's your matrix. Okay. And so these are decimals. Well, if we want to change those to fractions, we can just go in here, change it to fractions. Now we have that matrix as fractions. So that's how we do a 3 by 3 inverse matrix. So you're going to enter it by hitting second and then the matrix button. Put them in under the edit. Then you're going to quit out of there, pull up that matrix, and by second matrix, again, go to names and pick the one that you have, and then hit the inverse button to find it. So what I want you to do is go ahead and try one of these matrices, plug it in your graphing calculator, hit the inverse button, and see if you can get it. So go ahead and hit, go ahead and hit pause and then hit play when you're ready to move on. And here are the inverses for guided practice questions 5, 6, and 7. Now the next thing we're going to look at is using the inverse matrix to solve a linear system. And here are the 3 steps. First, we're going to write the system of equations as a matrix of AX equals B. So I'm going to write that AX equals B. The matrix A is the coefficient matrix. So remember, here are your coefficients. They're numbers in front of your variables. So this matrix is going to be -2, 3, and 5, 1. That's A. X, well, it's just going to be we have X and we have Y. And then B is going to be our answers. So it's going to be -11, 19. So we're going to set up the system of equations, and now it looks exactly like the problems that we did earlier when solving for X. It's in this form. We have the system of equations. A is our coefficient matrix. B is our matrix of constants, and the X is our matrix of variables. So we're just going to find X equals the inverse of A times B. So to do this, we have to find the inverse of A. And the inverse of A, once again, is going to be 1 over, and it's going to be -2 minus 15 times, and then we have switch those two, so it's going to be 1 and -2, switch the signs, and then we're going to multiply it by 11, negative 11, 19. So this is really going to be negative 1/17, negative 3/17, negative 5/17. Oh, that'll be positive 3/17, and then 2/17. And then times negative 11, 19. Okay, so now we're gonna have to multiply those to find out what these are. So if we do that, let's go up here and do it so we have some more room. So we're gonna have 11/17 and 19 times 3 is 57, so that's gonna be plus 57 17ths. And then we're gonna do row 2 and column 1. So that's gonna be negative 55 17ths. And then 19 times 2 is 38, so that's gonna be plus 38 17ths. And hopefully these are gonna give us nice numbers. So 11 and 57 is 68, divided by 17 is 4. And then negative 55 plus 38 is negative 17, divided by 17 is negative 1. So if we have this, that's our solution, which means in this case, x is 4 and y is negative 1. And so our solution is the ordered pair for negative 1. We can do the same thing with example 5. It says solve a system or multi-step problem. So at a video store, the cost of 3 DVDs and 2 video games and 4 VHS movies is $130. So 3 DVDs, 2 video games, and 4 we'll call it HS games is $130. The cost of 2 DVDs, 1 video game, and 5 VHS movies is $105. And the cost of 3 DVDs, 3 video games, and 3 VHS movies is $135. All right, so if we have this is a 3x3 matrix. Again, here's what we really want to find. X equals the inverse of A times B. Remember, the inverse of A is going to be your coefficient matrix. So 3, 2, 4, 2, 1, 5, 3, 3, 3. Your result matrix is your answer. So 130, 105, 135. So we can enter this into your graphing calculator and come up with the answer. Now, using inverse matrices is by far my favorite way to solve a system of equations, because once you have your equation set up, all you got to do is plug it right into your graphing calculator. So make sure that you know these numbers. Inverse, and then we're just going to take the inverse of A times B. So let's pull up our graphing calculator, and let's go to our matrix. So second matrix. I'm going to go over to Edit, and I'm going to make this first one my 3x3 matrix. And row 1 was 3, 2, 4. Row 2 was 2, 1, 5. Row 3 was 3, 3, 3. All right. Then we're going to go to our matrix We're going to go over to edit again. Now we're going to go down to B, and we're going to put the other one in. And that's a 3 by 1 matrix. And if we look at those, it's going to be 130, 105, 135. So 130, 105, 135. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to multiply the inverse of A times B. So let's get out of here, bring up, clear our screen. So we're going to take A. So we're going to go to second matrix. Now we're just looking for the matrix, so we hit the name, that's A, the inverse button, times second matrix, bring up B. We hit enter. And I must put something in wrong. So let's go back here to look at these quick. Second matrix. What was my... Let's go over to edit. Make sure I have these in here right. Oh, 33. That's not going to work. So that's just a 3. There. Now it'll come out right. So let's try that again. We'll go the inverse. So bring up A. We'll do the inverse of that times. We're going to bring B in. And now we're going to multiply them. And there's our answer. X is your first one. Y is your second one. Z is your second or your third one. So 20, 15, 10. So 20, 15, 10. So find the cost of each item. So we're going to say that a DVD was 20 bucks. A video game, $15. And a VHS, forgot my number there, it's 10. Was $10. So go ahead and I would try a couple of these guided practice questions using the inverse matrix. So go ahead and pause the video. You can hit play when you're ready to resume. And here are the answers that you get for those questions 8, 9, and 10. Now, number 9, we get infinitely many solutions. If you put that on your graphing calculator and enter that, you're going to get an error, and it said singular matrix. Well, that means that we have one of those weird situations, and so there's infinitely many solutions on here. So in section 3.8, which is the last section in this chapter, we are talking about solving systems of equations using inverse matrices. So we started out by finding the inverse of a 2 by 2 matrix, and then we also looked at how to do those on the graphing calculator. Then we used that to enter stuff into our calculators to solve systems of equations using inverse matrices. So far in this chapter, we've talked about 5 ways to solve systems of equations: graphing, substitution, elimination, Cramer's rule, and now inverse matrices. So here is your homework assignment for page 214, and this is for section 3.8. I would highly recommend doing the quiz on section 3.6 through 3.8. That is on page 214.